Good afternoon, Sam.
Hi, Kate. How you going?
Really good, thanks. And as usual, you and I were having a little chit chat before we start, and I said, do we need to hit the record button? Because what you were saying was about to be quite profound. So I wanted to stop you and let you say it here live. Or on recording. So you were telling me you've been quite unwell the last week or so, and you've had enforced downtime in your business.
I have,
And
yes.
you decided to then watch a series on Netflix, which is an old one, you said, but it's Ita Buttrose's Paper Giants.
Yes. It's the story of Ita Buttrose. And I know this came out quite a few years ago now, but I didn't watch it at the time. And, it's the universe sending messages, isn't it? So I landed on Paper Giants and thought, I'm going to give this a go. Let me just say, I'm only a couple of episodes in, but I love Ita Buttrose. Like, the way her character is portrayed in this is, bear in mind, this is the early 70s. And the first thing that strikes me about this show is they're a group of women who are trying to change the perspective on women in general and female empowerment and all of those things. And when I think that was 50 years ago, Kate, what are we still doing?
Wow. But she was such a pioneering groundbreaker.
Yes. And there are so many things that as I'm watching the way she was navigating her way into prominence. And the episode I'm on, she's just been taken onto the media board, and a seat at the table for a woman, particularly back then, that's massive. That is absolutely massive.
Wow.
But the way she's navigated her way to that position, I admire her so much. I don't know how much accuracy there is in the show, but they've certainly done her a really good service in showing how she managed in a time when women weren't treated very well. Women weren't treated well in the workplace. And the start of the series actually touches on the fact that if she wanted a career, she better not get pregnant. And that news was delivered to her not in those words, but it was actually delivered to her by another woman who was her senior. Career and babies, can't have both. Fascinating message, because not long after that she was pregnant. So it's been
I wonder if that was intentional or not. Yeah.
Oh, I think it was
she was
very
appointed,
well done.
I was just, as we were speaking, Googling on Wikipedia, and she was appointed women's editor of The Telegraph at just 23 years old. I mean, that's already amazing. But
yes.
So tell us a bit more, Sam, about what it was. You've said that it was the way she navigated her career, and even how many children did she have in the end?
I don't know. So she's just had her second child. I don't know if she had any more after that. But like I say, I've only just started it, but I'm in awe. I think it was the way she's been portrayed with such grace, but at the same time she doesn't back down. I love that the characters of all these women, they're quite giggly, which nowadays would be seen as, you're a bit dumb, really. You're just sitting in the corner giggling. But it's really tempered with intelligent ideas and thoughts, and it's just making me see things quite differently. But yes, I'm very sad that I'm watching the issues play out in this program that were relevant 50 years ago, and we're still having the same challenges now.
Although we've come a long way as well, wouldn't you say?
We have. We've been liberated in so many ways, but I feel like we're still knocking at the door of having that equity that we've spoken about, and having the same opportunities, and having an equal say in things.
Yeah, I mean, you only need to look at the numbers in which we've talked about previously, but in the amount of capital funding that goes to women worldwide to support business ventures, which is only 3% of the total capital funding given to business owners. So that already tells you the state of things, doesn't it, when it comes to women in business and so on. So while we have made so many great strides, we're still struggling when it comes down to what actually gets businesses off the ground, which is capital funding, and we're only getting 3%. That's sort of a good indicator of where we're still at, despite all the progress.
Yes. Yes. One of the things I love about coaching is listening to the incredible ideas that people have for business. And there is no shortage of ideas. Like there is just some phenomenal ideas out there, but there seems to be a very big gap between the point of idea and having the confidence and the means to bring that idea to life.
Absolutely, there's a huge gap, yeah, and it's difficult for men as well. I mean, that whole startup space is just really difficult. I'm working with a tech startup at the moment where attracting capital investment is still really difficult. And we're actually in a time where it is an advantage to be a woman, because there's a lot of capital funding programs aimed specifically at female founders. So yes, in that respect, the tide is turning very slowly to the point where we are going to get positive support, I think. But I think that whole gap of getting an idea from the ground into a fully fledged business is just a tough slug, no matter which way you go about it, right?
Yes,
I think capital funding is just such an essential thing for everybody. And I know that most of the clients we work with, we're bootstrapping. So we're putting our own personal funds in. We might be getting a business loan to get it off the ground, or, you're really risking yourself financially with the hopes that your business will succeed and eventually thrive. And yet, that valley of death, as we call it, it's a big gap to get through, and it's why the 85% of small businesses fail. So, what do you think in terms of what can we learn so far? When I think of Ita Buttrose, I didn't know her that well. I just knew that she was a kick-ass woman. I remember growing up with her and seeing her on TV, and she was always glamorous. She had those beautiful, she always looked elegant, glamorous, beautifully done up or put together, whatever they say. And yet she had that strength about her, that don't mess with me quality, that obviously that's the quality that's got her.
Yeah, I think that's what's coming through so beautifully in this show. And she does it with such grace. And the way she pitches her ideas, it's subtle, but it's not so subtle that she goes unnoticed. And I think that's a really important distinction to make, because too many of us aren't speaking up in the way that we should in order to get noticed. Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. But I'm curious, what was it about the way she pitched that you've seen in the short episodes you've seen so far?
I think that it was the undercurrent that she believed wholeheartedly in the ideas that she was putting forward. And she wasn't going to take no for an answer. She didn't do it in a way that was confrontational. It was just, it's just the mannerism, and kudos to the actors in the show, because it can be difficult to portray these things. But this is what I'm getting out of it, is that, we don't have to jump up and down and throw tantrums and do all of that sort of stuff that I don't think women really do. I think they just portray us that way. in order to get noticed. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's the reality. But there is a lot to learn from the way she did it.
It's something that I'm going to definitely go and watch. Could do with a bit of an injection of power woman in my life right now. But it's interesting, isn't it? Maybe she had this natural gift of pitching an idea towards the what's in it for the person sitting, what's in it for them, for the person sitting in front of her. And I've seen over the years that that is absolutely key to any marketing, any pitching, anything. A lot of the business owners that you and I work with get stuck in this is a great idea and it's, it can solve this problem, but you've got to really find a way of telling the person you're talking to what's in it for them if they engage with you or if they engage with this product or idea. And she probably had that naturally nailed, the way she managed to, like you said, so gracefully move up in the ranks through her career. She probably just had that within her. She knew intuitively, I need to make this person understand what's in it for them if they get on board with this.
Yeah, I think this is something that's really key for people to learn. And Kate, I've been in a few Facebook groups recently, and I'm seeing this message pop up time and time again in these groups where people have really great products and, potentially great businesses, but they're really missing putting the shoes on of their customer and really understanding who their customer is. And I think in Paper Giants, every conversation that Ida has with her team is very much to tune into what does the modern woman look like? What is she thinking about? What is she interested in? Everything is centered around the audience. And I think that's a really important lesson to learn, because you're right. People think that they've got a great idea, but they're sitting in what they want to share rather than what their audience wants to receive.
Absolutely. That's just hitting the nail on the head, isn't it? And she was the founder of Cleo, right? The women's magazine in Australia. I believe that's what one of the things she did.
Yes. Well,
and so for that magazine
according to the show, according to the show, Kerry Packer was actually had her marked to do the Australian version of Cosmopolitan magazine. Now, again, I don't know exactly how accurate the show is, but in the show, she's pegged for the Australian version of Cosmopolitan magazine, and that magazine actually went to a different media group. So Kerry Packer and Ida came up with this idea to actually still run with something to compete with that, because Kerry Packer didn't want to lose. And that's how Cleo came about.
Right.
So another lesson
and for that
in the first
magazine,
not to listen when people say no.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason for that magazine taking off and being so successful would have to do with the fact that she really understood the modern woman at that time and knew what articles they wanted to read, what recipes they wanted. She really obviously knew the audience really well for it to take off.
Yes, well, she was breaking ground in so many areas, and one of the first areas that she was speaking of was picking up on topics that were taboo that women really wanted to know about, and that dived into a lot of areas around sex at the time, because it was there was a whole sexual revolution going on for women during that period. So they were challenged with being labelled as pornography and all of those sorts of things, but her ideas she really did appeal to her audience. She knew them intimately, and she surrounded herself with people that were in touch with that audience as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, it's a good lesson. And what you were talking about being really in tune with what the audience wants, I always get clients to, and it's become a bit of a formula in marketing, hasn't it? But it's because it's so effective, which is what, highlighting or articulating the transformation. So where you meet someone, calling out their pain points. So, for example, a woman listening to this podcast, a pain point might be, you feel in constant overwhelm and juggling all the balls, and like you can never get ahead in business, and calling out where they are at this time so that they can make an emotional connection to, oh yes, that's me. And then the transformation is, well, how would you like to be armed with the tools and strategies you need to get organized and on top of your business, so you can make the money you deserve, or defining the end destination that you want them to get to by working with you or listening to your podcast. And that transformation is what people pay for. And I find so often in marketing or first-time business owners, that's a concept that they really need to get their heads around. And I find myself constantly teaching and helping clients work through that, because it seems to be a natural thing. Sorry, it feels like we're segueing into a marketing conversation here, but
that's all right.
The majority of business owners I work with get so stuck in talking about the process, and I always say it's, are you selling the aeroplane or the destination? If someone's desperately hanging out for a holiday and they really want to go to Hawaii and all they can think of is the cocktail by the pool, and you're trying to sell them the aeroplane that's going to get them there, and they don't care about that, but how do you really define that A to B and that transformation for your clients? And I see most business owners now using that formula on their website, where you start out with, does this sound like you? And then with 3 to 5 bullet points outlining the pain points, and then, what if you could, or would you like to? And then highlighting the destination that you want to take them to, so that the people landing on your page can find themselves or not in the situation you're describing about their pain points, and they can make an emotional connection to the end destination that you're taking them to, and doing that really well. That formula just works because at the end of the day, it's that transformation that people will pay good money for, right?
Absolutely. Yes. I think too, one of the common problems that I see people making in their marketing, and particularly with the ladies that I'm working with, is the language that they use as well, Kate, because they're communicating using words that they would use rather than using the exact words that their audience would use. And of course, you've got to think about the person. Your ideal customer is sitting there typing something onto a keyboard. You need to be able to tap into the language that they're typing into their keyboard in order for them to find you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's true. I do a lot of work with clients on this. I think we get stuck in feeling like we have to speak a certain way online, because most of us at our of our age have grown up with anything you put in writing professionally needs to be professional speak. It needs to be sort of, using proper words and so on. But the reality is that people don't connect with that. They want to feel like you hear them where they are now in their journey, and the words and the language that they're using. So I was having a discussion with a client the other day, and she was saying, I want to take people from, where they're so busy and overwhelmed that they their days are so full that they're running on adrenaline, so that at night they can't unwind and relax, and they can't sleep properly. So it's this perpetual awful cycle of sleep deprivation that just gets worse. And I said, well, how do your clients describe that? What do they say? She said, they always say they're tired but wired. And I said, so use those words, and and I think sometimes we think, but that sounds too colloquial, but no, you've got to really, whatever words you hear repeatedly from your clients, you need to really home in and use those words. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. The words you use are super important, and I think people trip over their words and trip over their copy a lot, don't they? They get so caught up in trying to make it perfect because they're trying to communicate something they're passionate about. They invest too much energy into it sometimes. I think people overthink all of that. what you've said is perfect, Kate. It's all about just listening to what people are saying and use their words. You don't have to reinvent the wheel about what they're saying. You just have to listen and use their words back to them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I know that you were saying you're stepping away from marketing coaching and focusing more on automation and systems and time management and streamlining and efficiency and all of that. But you've learned a lot in your marketing journey over the last 4 or 5 years, wouldn't you say, Sam? Branching out with your coaching business.
Kate, well, I kind of laugh. I remember when I first started coaching, and because I did it, when I did my bachelor's degree, which I only just finished before I started coaching, I was a mature age student. So I kind of hung my hat on the fact that I did a minor in marketing. So I thought I studied marketing, at the university level. That taught me nothing. The reality of marketing was so different to what I learned at uni. It's not funny.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So tell me more about that.
Well, I think marketing, the educational side of marketing was totally devoid of learning enough about your audience. It focused so much on branding and what the business needed to show up as, without thinking about how does that align to the people that I want to sell to. I just think
the 4 Ps.
A whole big part that was missing, and that's the biggest piece of the puzzle. Even that, I remember back in the early days, Kate, of who is your target audience, and all of the questions for you to work out who your target audience is was based on demographics.
Yes, which is so secondary to what's actually important.
I know.
Yeah.
Knowing what colour hair she has and what house she's living in is irrelevant.
What car she drives.
Because how is she feeling? What is she thinking about? Like, you need to get to the inner stuff, because the outer stuff doesn't really matter.
Thank you for saying that, because this is a bugbear that I've had for quite some time. And we all struggle with imposter syndrome in our worlds, because especially, like me, previously I was an engineer and a scientist for 15 years, and then 10 years ago stepped out on my own. And then you feel like a fraud telling people that you know how to start and grow businesses, because that's not your education and your training. And yet I devoured every single marketing and business course I could do for at least a 5 to 8 year period. I was just constantly learning everything out there on the internet that I could gobble up. I did. If I could tell you how much money I spent on marketing programs and so on, and some were good, some were bad, but I really learned a lot about modern day marketing and how it's different to traditional marketing. And I think it served me really well. And especially when you get to the Simon Sinek part, for me, he has brought home the most incredible, essential, critical concept that marketing has been missing, which is what you were saying. It was devoid of the audience. And he's brought together the integration of your own personal story and your experiences in life that make you really passionate about what you're doing, and how those relate to the people that you're meant to serve. And so I love how he always says your why is the backstory. That's what's led you here to this point to do the work you want to do. And the vision is where you're going, and who you need to serve, who are the people that you're called to serve. And like you say, that is all about feeling. That's all about emotion and life experience. And your target audience wants to know that you understand them and their experiences, and that you've been in the trenches and you've experienced what they have or similar. So you have empathy, you have understanding, and not only that, but you've overcome it. So you have the tools, the strategies, and all the smarts to help them get through the challenge they're dealing with. And so that whole emotive side is the missing piece in marketing. And I, back last year when I was collaborating with a colleague, and we were putting out a workshop, and it was about this exact thing. We were saying, look, it's fine to do your 5Ps and, get all that stuff right. But if you're not truly understanding the hearts and minds of your clients, then, that's the bit you need to understand, and you need to understand how to speak that language. So I put this on LinkedIn, and I got vilified by a tertiary educated marketer telling me that what on earth could I possibly know about marketing since I was an engineer and never studied marketing.
Wow.
And it sort of, it was awful. And I sort of tried to respond online very tactfully. This was on LinkedIn. And I just said, look, this is my personal experience with working with clients over the years. This is the missing piece, and this is the part I like to teach. And then this person kept coming back at me, and I eventually had to remove the post because it was getting embarrassing online.
Wow.
And I went through about a good month of feeling like a total massive fraud. Just thinking, who the hell am I to teach marketing when I don't even, but I just wanted to share that today because I think so many of us go through these experiences where someone in our environment might just say that one thing that makes us question every bit of belief we had about ourselves, and the confidence we have and the sort of the skills we think we're bringing. All of a sudden it feels like the rug's been pulled out from under you because you're a total imposter. What the hell do you know? So that was and as all these, I know you know this, Sam, but all these things that happen that really shake us up, they end up being a gift, right? Because I then went back and I was like, no, after about a month, I was like, no, damn you. I'm going to write down every reason why I am qualified to help people with their marketing, And I did that. I went back, I listed all the courses I'd done. I listed all the, and all the things I'd consumed and all the women I'd helped. And you and I know that at this point, we've helped hundreds of women start and grow businesses. So, it was an interesting exercise for my own self-confidence to get back out there and say, I can help you with your marketing, and not have that little voice in my head going, you're a fraud, you're an imposter, what do you know? So,
I was listening to somebody talk about imposter syndrome, somebody that I admire very much. And this was the most valuable lesson that I got from what they said, was that when imposter syndrome sets in, you have to think about what you would need to do in order for you to feel enough. At what point? Because so many of us feel imposter syndrome without ever defining what that invisible line is where you feel like you're the expert. At what point are you the expert? So rather than getting stuck in, I'm not good enough and I don't know enough and all of those feelings surrounding imposter syndrome, when you start to feel that, you've got to sit down and say, okay, well, in order for me not to feel that, in order for me to stand up and say, yes, I am an expert, they need to do exactly what you just did, Kate, which is to sit down and write down all the reasons why you are an expert, or where's that gap for yourself? Because once you identify the gap between where you are now and where you consider that you would be an expert, you've got something to work towards, and you can fill that gap.
That's true. Yeah, and that idea of being an expert I've struggled with a bit too. And the way I've got around that is maybe I'm wrong or this is not the right approach, but it's how I've managed it, is thinking, okay, I'm not an expert and I don't have to be, but I can help people who are 1, 2 or more steps behind me on the journey with what I've learned to get to this point, and so I might not be an expert, but I know how to help you pull in the right resources and strategies to get just to the next step, and also to know who I'm comfortable helping and who I'm not, because I know the clients that I feel out of my depth with, if they're, running large teams and something I haven't had an experience with as a business owner, then I refer them to someone who's got that experience, because it's also not a good thing to get yourself into a situation where you are out of your depth and you don't have the experience to help someone take those next steps, right? And I know a lot of us can, well, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, Sam, where we're naturally confident women and we tend to think, oh yeah, I'm not sure how to solve that, but I'm sure I'll figure it out. And then so you take on a client only to realize, actually, I don't think I'm the right person to help them. Have you had that experience?
I have had that experience, but I've also had the opposite experience where on paper I've looked at the person that's a potential client and I've been intimidated because they've been very successful in business. But what they want from me is not really about business. They wanted another woman to talk to. They wanted to know how to navigate motherhood and running their business and other things that I could certainly help with. But I did feel that, oh my goodness, like they're running an 8-figure business. What am I going to bring to the table here? Because they've done it. But,
yes,
you know, even for women like that, they're still on the journey. It's not, there's so much marketing around achieving $10,000 months or, you know, 6-figure years, 7-figure years, all of that. But you don't do that and stop. Like this is a continual pathway that you're on. So, I don't know.
Absolutely. There's
maybe
always
I've got too much confidence. I don't know.
I don't think so. No, I think it's great. And I definitely have had those situations where I felt intimidated, but then when you get into conversation, you feel, okay, I can add value here and it's all good. I have had situations, though, where I have referred them onwards because I've not only felt intimidated, I've felt that I haven't got that value that I can offer them, given where they're at on their journey. And that can be a deflating experience, but also it's the only thing you can do, right? And
look, you know, Kate, that there have been people that I have been working with that I've not continued to work with just because of the industry that they're in, or even this is the thing that the type of person that they are might not be somebody that works cohesively with me. So, you know, personality plays a big part in what we do.
Absolutely. And coachability.
Yeah.
You know, of the client themselves.
Yeah. I was referred to someone recently from another coach. And it's funny because when I spoke to the other coach, she said, oh, have you been in touch with, you know, the person that I sent through to you? And she said, oh, she was so difficult to deal with and she wouldn't listen. And, you know, she was already doing things and she didn't want to do anything differently to what she was already doing. And I'm like, so you sent her to me? And she said, oh, you're so much more patient than I am to deal with her. I was like, oh.
And are you working? Have you started working with this person?
I haven't heard from her. I've reached out a number of times and I haven't heard from her. So maybe she got what she needed from the other coach, which was to, you know, feel like she already knew what she wanted to do. So.
Something else I find difficult when working with clients is, and this might be helpful to other ladies out there that are, you know, in the coaching space, but when you start working with a client, but they have other mentors that they're working with as well at the same time.
Yes.
And it just becomes impossible because you think you have a plan laid out together, and then they come in and they've decided to do this other thing, and it doesn't fit into your plan and then it just becomes a total shambles, and it's frustrating. But yeah, I've definitely had clients where we've worked through whole web copy together, or we've done something that feels really good and in alignment with their business, and then they've taken on a YouTube coach or something who's redone. Like, when you just have that feeling that your work together is being wasted and it's not building not building on itself to grow anywhere significant. Yeah, that's very frustrating too. And I always wonder why people do that, why they take on multiple coaches at the same time. Just is beyond me.
I don't know, because it is contradictory, isn't it? And not to say that another coach wouldn't do the right things or teach you the right things, but it is a waste to be listening to too many people.
Yeah, and there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, aren't there? I think that's the tricky thing with building a business. There are so many different things you could do, and I think that's why, I've really just brought it back to basics now. And you know what it's like. And I remember you and I, we've been there where your Facebook feed is full of all these offerings of, these programs that promise the magic bullet. And that was part of us starting this podcast, was there's so many programs out there promising the Holy Grail and all these. And yet, I've done so many of them myself that a business is like a puzzle, isn't it? It's like a big puzzle, and all these pieces have to fit together and work together well in order for the whole to thrive. And you can invest all this time in doing one bit, but you might not even have the foundation for that bit to work properly, or the infrastructure, or and so I find a lot of clients I work with, they've done all these things and they've spent a lot of money creating this stuff, but there's no plan or architecture pulling the whole thing together into a cohesive, structure. And that's why a lot of, I don't know your thoughts on this, Sam, but I know someone said to me way back in the beginning that the gold is in your list. And I didn't quite believe it at the time, in your email list, and I thought, really, surely you can. And there were people out there promising you don't need an email database, you just run a Facebook ad. And yes, I know there are businesses running that way through direct selling and that have a database. But my experience has taught me that your email database is the only asset you own as a business, right? It's something you need to nurture from day one and keep growing it, because no matter whether you've got these great courses or you've developed a great program, who are you going to sell it to, unless you don't have a large database of warm leads that love your work and love what you do? So what are your thoughts on an email database?
I'm an advocate of growing your email list, simply because I've had clients with the experience, and I know you have too, actually, Kate. I'm thinking of one in particular, where if the social media platform you're relying on decides to shut your account down or ban you, or whatever it is they do, you can get sent to Facebook jail, all those sorts of things. If that happens and that is your sole source of communication with your audience, you're in big trouble, because you have no control over that, and you're at the mercy then of trying to start again. Whereas at least the email list, you've got control and ownership over that.
Yeah. And it's something you can nurture. And I always think when I'm talking to my dad, writing an email, it's writing love letters to my warm leads. It's just sharing insight, sharing value, and then, of course, selling as well at the same time, so that they know that, these are the ways you can work with me. But I think especially for a startup, knowing that building your list is the core strategy from day one is really helpful, I think, which is why I'm such a big fan of lead magnets and nurture funnels, because you have to do that value-led marketing where you're solving their pain points for free and then taking them on a journey, nurture, and then they're in your database. So that connection's there, the trust and the credibility is there, so that when the time is right, they'll invest in working with you. And so I've been working with a client lately who's spent, a couple actually, lots of money and lots of time on building these programs and courses, but they put them out to market, and then crickets, so because they haven't it's really disheartening. But I think there's always this false idea that if you build a course, people are going to eat it up, and it's just not the case in today's world of oversaturated digital courses and e-programs. And, firstly, you have to test whether the market actually wants it, and a good way to do that is through an email database. And then, I've told clients before, the best thing you can do with the course is sell it first and then build it, because if no one wants it, then you haven't wasted all those months and time in. But a lot of people have troubles getting their head around that. They're like, no, I can't do that. I need to be organized. I need to first build the course and then I'll sell it. I'm like, but you are risking the fact that no one, you might have this beautiful, amazing course, but no one wants it. So, and you really could, in the meantime, focus. Sorry, you go.
Yeah, I like to call people out when they do that, because I say to them, why are you distracting yourself with this course before you know? Like, why do you think that's the most important thing to do? To build something that you don't even know, that's going to keep you so busy for that period of time, rather than you actually putting it out there and nobody wanting it. So is there that fear of rejection there? Whereas at least, people feel purpose in creating the course.
And it keeps you accountable. And I know it's a very scary concept to business, and it freaked me out at first, but you and I have had to do it now, where we've sold something and we've had to build it as we go. And it keeps you accountable. It makes you get the stuff out, and it's a win-win, because there's people sitting there waiting for your next round of content. And so you feel inspired and motivated to get it done. And you actually are in tune with their needs at the time, because you're speaking with them, that you're having conversations with them. So you know what their pain points are. So everything you're putting into the course is directly, it's one of the best tactics, I think, if you can get your head around it but I also think it's something that doing that does require a level of experience where, it does. I guess you and I got to that point. Well, it was out of necessity, wasn't it, that we did that? But I do think it's the only way. And if you can get comfortable with that idea as a first-time business owner, it's going to serve you much better than building all this stuff that potentially is going to sit there on your shelves and never see that, not get much revenue from.
Yeah, I think investing your energy and efforts into building something that you haven't put out to market as a possible product, the big problem with that too is that that fear of failure and that fear of, people not wanting to buy it, you're just delaying it.
Yeah, that's right. Better take a quick pain rejection than being rejected after you've poured your heart and soul into something. Yeah,
because I think the compound effect of that, and I don't even really like the word failure, because it's just, it's just one of the lessons you've got to learn.
It's market feedback.
Yes, it is. And also too, particularly with new business owners, or startups that dive straight into building a course or a program without doing anything in the market. You haven't developed any kind of authority. You've invested all this time, and you may have it. You may have years of education or years of experience, but if you haven't warmed up your audience to prepare them for this program, if all you've done is focus on the program and you haven't been showing your authority in various ways, and if you haven't been communicating with your audience and doing all of those things that you need to do to market a program, again, that's a recipe for disaster when you go to sell something.
Yeah. It's actually a good circle back to what we started talking about at the beginning, which is knowing your audience and being really in touch with their pain points and having that close understanding of what their world is like, so that you can deliver something that really meets their needs. And then the course will, if it meets a need and, the promise is there, people will buy it. But you're right. It's a parallel thing of building your credibility and visibility at the same time, building your database of people who resonate with your message and really like what you're putting out there. And at the same time, making offers. I've had offers that have fallen completely flat. We haven't had any sign-ups, but it was a great opportunity to get on the phone and say, hey, I noticed you were interested but didn't sign up. Can you tell me why? And then they tell me all these reasons why the program didn't work for them. And then we were able to rejig it so that it did work for them, So it's market feedback, and it's having those conversations, and taking the feedback on board.
Yes.
And I think at the end of the day, always just wanting to serve your customer, add value to the customer.
Yes. And that brings me right back around to Paper Giants, where they actually, the editorial team actually went down to the pub with the old cassette recorder and sat there around a table having beers and all that sort of stuff, hit record and asked people the questions. Old school market research.
Go. Yeah. That's what it comes down to, isn't it?
Yeah. We've got to communicate.
And I think
and that's
if we have any, and if we have any advice for first-time business owners, I think that's it. It's like, get out and talk to as many people who you think are your target market as possible. Interview them, understand them, ask them what they would want, ask them if they, if there was a product or a service they could get to help with that problem, what would it look like? And that's where you're going to start really coming up with something that works and is going to allow you to thrive.
Let me ask you this question, Kate. Do you think that people create first because they don't know how to articulate that product? They feel like if they've created it and they can show people, people will understand what it is.
Possibly. Yeah, maybe. Could be that. And also just this burning desire. I've got this great idea and I know it's going to help people and I just have to create it, and without, like we said, testing it. And it's only through putting that thing out there and trying and failing or getting that market feedback that you will eventually end up with a good program. I don't know what it is. I think it's just people have in mind that you can become rich quickly through a digital course or program, and it's a false myth. It's not true unless it actually really meets a need and it's really hitting the pain points and delivering an outcome for them. Then yes, but so many don't, and that's why they don't fly. But anyway, Sam, I've got to go get my kids from soccer camp and get on with that day. But today was a beautiful conversation. Thank you for being here with us, everyone, and we shall see you again next time.